So we are very, very pleased. Let's give him a great welcome for flying down. Mayor Cory.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I am so thrilled to be here. It's supposed to snow in New Jersey on Monday. I'm staying. You guys need me to shovel some garbage here? Well, listen, I don't want to stay long up here. I just want to celebrate. I want to celebrate the spirit and the theory and the idea and the love that's in this room. When I see somebody like Miss Glasser come up here and get a Lifetime Achievement Award, it reminds me of why I'm here. Now look, I have to tell you the truth. I've had to listen to my parents tell me the same stories over and over again for over 40 years now. And I don't say that with any disrespect, because when my mom tells a story, even if I've heard it 100 times before, I lean in a little bit because she has such a penchant for accuracy and detail that I learn something, thank you, I learn something every time she speaks. And when my dad tells a story, I lean in, I get really excited, even though I've heard it so many times before, because my dad has a penchant for hyperbole and exaggeration. And you see, my father, he tells these stories about his childhood. He grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, and at the first, when I was a little boy, it rained all the time during the stories. He lived at this strange geographical anomaly where to get to school, you had to walk uphill. To get home, you had to walk uphill. And the climactic patterns changed over the years. The stories went from rain, and then we went to a long period of hail, where first the hail was the size of golf balls, and then it went to every single size of ball there was in sports, all the way to beach balls. I do believe, I'm a religious man, and so I know the 10 Commandments, thou shalt honor thy mother and father. I came close to breaking that one 10 Commandment this last year when I got into a fight with my father when he said, son, he started telling me a story, and during the story he said a tsunami came and hit his town. And I was like, stop, time out. I was like, Dad, you lived in the mountains of North Carolina. A tsunami could not have hit your town. And the man looks at me and goes, boy, it was before the internet. You can't look up what happened. And so you have to understand, this is my parents. Every time I went, I got not just my parents, but generations full of the stories of America. My parents loved this country. My grandparents used to pile us into an old beat-up Winnebago. They call it the Green Dream. It was puke green, but it was the Green Dream. And they would drive us cross country, teaching us about the greatness of America. They would literally tell the 7 grandchildren, we want you to fall in love with this country. They gave us the history. And if my grandfather did not know the history, he made it up. I was telling the group this morning that my grandfather, we passed through this great town in Arizona, Yuma, Arizona. And I said, Granddad, why is this town called Yuma, Arizona? And he said, it's a glorious, glorious story, son. It was started, the very point of this, origins of this town started with 2 men who had a gunfight. One man pulled the gun and shot the other. He grabbed his chest and yelled at him, Yuma, and fell over. And so, why do I feel such love standing here? I'll tell you in a second. I love being in rooms like this, and I'll tell you in a moment. You see, my father had this idea about America. He told us, son, you can read your history books, but the great people of this country, their names won't necessarily be recorded in that history book. There are so many people, millions of folk, who believed in the ideals of this country even when they weren't real for them. You all know this. Dreamers and activists who boldly said, "Let America be." Langston Hughes, who wrote that poem, he said, "America never was America to me, but I swear this oath, America will be." And so they would tell me time and time again that the heroes of this nation are the humble heroes who pull together, work together, sacrifice together, struggle together. My father would come up to me, look me in the eye, pat me on the shoulder and say, "Son, you are the physical manifestation of a conspiracy of love." A conspiracy of love. And this is what I know. The stories about his life were a testimony to that. Think about this. My dad was born in the deep South, yes. In the mountains of North Carolina, yes. He was born to a single mother. He was born poor. In fact, if he heard me saying that right now, he would heckle me from behind and say, "Don't you tell those people I was poor, boy." I wasn't poor. I was po, P-O. I couldn't afford the other two letters. I was a po boy from North Carolina. And you see, my dad, it was true though. His mom could not take care of him. So what happened? Folks in this town would not let him fail. They would, like Hillary Clinton said, they'd leave no child behind. And so what I'm telling you right now is what happened is that people put food on the table for him, roof over his head. They raised him in the way that he should go. And when it was time for him to go to college, he didn't think he could go to college. And so what did folk in that town do? They told him, "You're going to school." He says, "I can't afford it." He, to this day, 2 years ago at Thanksgiving, he started tearing up about the people that put dollar bills in envelopes so that he could afford his first semester's tuition at North Carolina Central University. But think about this. Both of my parents landed in college in the early 60s. I had this experience, and I don't know what it is about the power of some women. They have this transformative ability to take a grown man child and still make him feel like he's 12 years old. So think about this. I now think, as my father would say, I think I'm impotent because I get invited to be the commencement speaker at my mom's university on her 50th reunion. Yes. Well, you all are applauding. Don't applaud because, as my father would say, you ain't so impotent, boy. Because I go down to this commencement, and they're treating me like I'm the commencement speaker. "Mr. Mayor, would you sit here? Mr. Mayor, would you do that?" I sit at a table in a banquet hall like this. I'm sitting up near the front just like here. But like right now, I'm doing well because my parents aren't around to mess up my game. But at this dinner, my mom was there. So she walks over to me. I'm sitting here eating, and she starts pulling me by the arm. "Come here, boy, come here." And I'm like, "Mom." She's like, "Come here, boy." She starts pulling me out of my chair. And I'm pulling back. I'm like, "Mom, I'm the mayor. Treat me like a mayor. People are watching." And she takes me to table after table. And she says to me, she says, "Son, this is the young lady who led our boycott of the local store that wouldn't serve black people." She pulled me to another table. And she said, "Son, this is the person that led our voter registration drive against death threats and backlash." She still stood up. You all remember Goodwin, Cheney, Schwerner. They died just trying to register people to vote. As she pulled me around, it was almost like she was saying, "Pay attention, this person fought for you, struggled for you." Look, after that, my parents went to Washington, D.C. After college, they landed and got their first jobs. But they didn't get their first jobs on their own. I'm not saying they weren't talented, dedicated, and hardworking, but I don't care what your background is in this room. Irish, Jewish, black. There was a time in America where people didn't want to hire you. They didn't want to let you in their store. They put signs up, no Irish or dogs need apply. We all came up that rough road. And so it took a bunch of folks, blacks and whites, coming together, forming organizations in Washington, D.C., working with corporations that got my parents their jobs. My father became one of the first blacks hired by an oil company, one of the first blacks hired by a department store, and then both of them became two of the first blacks hired by a small tech company you all might have heard of called IBM. And then listen to this. Then my parents get promotions. They do really well. They get promotions up to New York City, Jersey suburbs, they wouldn't sell homes to black families. So what do you think happened? People whose names I don't know, just like in this room, volunteers and activists came together and formed organizations. The Fair Housing Council. And in fact, they would let my parents go out and buy a home, and if they were told it was sold, they would send a white couple after my parents. My dad would say, son, they were Mr. and Mrs. Brown, but they weren't brown, they were a white couple. My parents fell in love with a home in Harrington Park, New Jersey. They were told it was sold. The Browns came afterwards. It was still for sale. The Browns put a bid on the house. They put a bid on the house and was accepted. On the day of the closing, my father, and this young lawyer, I don't know his name, young Jewish lawyer, my father had walked into the real estate agent's office on the day of the closing. The real estate agent walked up there to the counter. The lawyer did to the real estate agent and said, sir, you are in violation of New Jersey fair housing law. And he started giving this proud speech. But the real estate agent would have nothing to do with it. He stands up and he punches my father's lawyer in the face. And then he sticks a dog on my dad. Now look, the size of the dog has changed over the years. My father now says it was Stephen King's Cujo. My mom will look down and say, oh no, it was just Dorothy's Toto. It was just a little thing. But now picture this. We move into this town, as my father affectionately called us, 4 raisins in a tub of sweet vanilla ice cream. And what do we find? A community of compassion, a community of caring, a community of love. And imagine what my father feels. This nation, in one generation, from poverty, segregation, broken family, now living the American dream. My father would look at me and my brother walking around. Here I was, senior in high school All-American football player, on my way with a scholarship to Stanford, honor roll, all this stuff. My father would look at me and watch me walking around, opening the fridge. He'd just stop and say, boy, don't you dare walk around here like you hit a triple. You were born on third base. You need to understand something. You drank deeply from wells of freedom and liberty and opportunity that you did not dig. You eat lavishly from banquet tables that were prepared for you by your ancestors. You sit under the shade of trees that were planted and cultivated by hands not your own. And you have a choice. You could sit back and get dumb, fat, and happy, or you can metabolize those blessings in your body, let them burn and become fuel to continue the fight for America. And so why do I feel so proud standing here now? It's because I'm standing in front of a room full of volunteers and activists, people that are not just doing what is required of them to take care of their family, but they're standing up for principles and ideals and a mission that is bigger than them. In this room, I sat there and listened and shook hands with you and heard the stories. This is my family's conspiracy of love. Anybody who thinks this country was built on a bunch of rugged individuals has got our history a little wrong. This nation was founded on a Declaration of Independence. But the story of America is also a testimony of interdependence. We are a people that came together to accomplish what other people thought was impossible. We're a nation that is a tribute to that old proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And this is why I'm proud to be, like you, a Democrat. Not because I think Democrat, give it a applause back. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a reflexive Democrat. I don't think we have a monopoly on all the good ideas. But I am one that knows, when I look at the totality of the history of this party, that we are the party of we, not the party of me. We're the party that sees the value and the worth and understands the need that we have of every individual person. We're the party that knows you can't turn your back on an American and get stronger just by that very act. You are weaker. We are the party of civil rights, the party of workers' rights, the party of women's rights, the party of gay and lesbian rights, the party of environmental rights. Because we know when we exalt and affirm all people, America becomes stronger. And so when I look at the work that we still have to do, I lean heavily on rooms like this that are committed to a fight. Because I'm telling you, I'm worried about what's happening in our country now. Please understand this, I'm a little worried. You see, we have a bunch of folks now getting caught up in that spiritually toxic state. I call it a state of sedentary agitation, where you sit on your couch and you get so upset about what's happening in the world, but you fail to get up and do something about it. Please understand. You cannot allow our inability to do everything to undermine our determination to do something. We can't fall under the ruse of thinking that democracy is a spectator sport, and all that's required of us is to cheer from the sidelines for our team. No, we are the agents of this democracy. We have to get into the game. And while so many people are sitting on the sideline, so many people are agitated in their sedentary position, while so many people are distracted by television, by narcissism, by consumerism, we're starting to lose a little bit of ground. I am frightened by what's happening here in Florida. You're losing your right to vote. It's being stripped away, picked away, whittled away. How can you have lines on polls that go on for hours and hours? This day of technology, there should be no lines for voting. We should have an open and abundant democracy. I'm worried while some people are sitting on the sidelines. After all of the fights for equality for women, after all of the fights to open access to preventative care for women, after all of the fights for respect for women, we're starting to lose ground. We have folks that are starting to close access to preventative health. We're starting to have people starting to close access for women to have the freedom and the control over their own bodies. I'm starting to worry, y'all. But here, while we're seeing our state for so long here, understand that the only pathway in a democracy for success, something my parents told me and my grandparents told me, heck, my grandparents and my family used to treat every graduation, whether it was 8th grade, high school, graduate school, law school, they would show up and act crazy. They would embarrass me. My grandfather would stroll up and say, look boy, I see you're not magna cum laude, you're not summa cum laude, you're just thank you, Lottie, I'm out of here. You all heard it from your family. Every generation. Access to public education is critical, but here we now see, again and again, the erosion of our public education system. And so I see the challenges. Why am I here in Florida? Because I see the challenges that we have, and I know how important this state is. Florida. In New Jersey, I was telling some friends, this is like the door hinge of our democracy. Where you all swing, the country is going to turn. And so I want to give you a word of caution as we look forward to next year. Just a word of caution, if I can. Because you will have a Republican governor. And again, you all have a governor. I don't care if he's Republican or not, he's not doing a good job. And I have a little experience. with being a Democrat. Democrat and seeing what happens when a Republican governor gets in. Now look, I just want to say this. You all don't know who my governor is. Very soft-spoken guy. You haven't seen him. I don't need to say his name. I call him a friend. I know his family, but I just want to give this as an illustration of the problem. May I illustrate the problem for you by telling you of something very embarrassing, and I hope you will not hold it against me. But you all here, this is a wonderful county, and you treat your elected officials. I saw how you applauded them when they came in. I took notes. I even pulled out my camera, filmed some of it because I want to show my city. Because on voting day, November 2008, let me take you back to my experiences on that day. I go to vote. And I don't know if you guys probably had the same experiences. I know all you all like to line up here to vote too. Ridiculous and unnecessary as it is, but that's the law. I went to vote too, and I roll up to my polling station. And I see a line wrapped around the building. Now, I know in this great state, this great county, when you all see your elected officials come to vote, you probably all stop and say, how are you doing, Sheriff? How are you doing, Mayor? How are you doing, Congressperson? But this is Newark, New Jersey. We keep it real. I walk up to my polling place, and the woman at the end of the line sees me, and she turns around, and she says to me early in the morning, not a greeting, not a salutation, no deference to position or title. She looks at me and she says simply this: boy, don't you think you're cutting in line now? You're going to wait on this line just like everybody else. You're not special. And I say to her, I'm the mayor now, I say to her, yes ma'am. And I stand on the end of the line. I wait for over an hour to get the vote. My staff is blowing up my cell phone. I'm answering the cell phone and they're saying to me, where are you, Mayor? You've got things to do. And I get indignant with them. Where am I? I'm standing in line with the people. What do you think, I'm special or something? I get to the front of the line. And there is a commotion going on. There are these poll workers, these poor poll workers. And you all know, somebody in here has worked for polls, right? A lot of you all work for polls. I tell you right now, my version of the Bible, my King James translation, the Sermon on the Mount is very simple. Blessed are the meek, blessed are the poor, and then there's a section at the end there, blessed are the poll workers. For they shall inherit the earth. Because it is a tough job. You feel sorry for them working all day. I don't know what they feed you down here, but in New Jersey, it's 2 pieces of bread and some bologna. And I get up there and these poor poll workers are being screamed at, and this woman is standing there screaming at the top of her lungs. She's saying, I don't care if my name is not in that book. I am going to vote for Barack Obama. Oh, you all applaud now. When I walk into a scene of great consternation, all the poll workers don't know what to do. They can't move this woman. They look to me a position of authority. They look to me and say, Mayor, would you please help with this situation? I go, I'll help. This woman's not leaving until she votes for Barack Obama. 1 year later, it is the gubernatorial race in New Jersey. Our governor is running against an unknown guy named Chris Christie. I go to the poll, and nobody is there. There is no line. There's no commotion. Nobody to greet me. I walk right in, and the poll workers looked lonely. I had to give a couple of them hugs. And I vote with ease. I want to tell you the truth now, because this is going to be the problem. You see, we have the people. And I know in my heart, there's an old saying, the power of the people is always greater than the people in power. I know you have a tough governor, but remember that. The power of the people is always greater than the people in power. I want to tell you something else. Millions of people will always beat millions of dollars. I'll tell you that. But this is the problem we have. I call it the Alice Walker trap. The Alice Walker Trapp, because she said very clearly, the most common way people give up their power is not realizing they have it in the first place. And so here we have a community of people. Here we have a state and a nation where we look around and we have real problems pressing us, but we don't realize we have the power to do something about it. And that's where you all come in. You see, what I learned from my parents' stories is that change is not easy. King said change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability. It must be carried in on the back of soldiers who will sacrifice and struggle. You all in this room right now, over the coming months and coming year, you all will be the determining factor of this election. It's not the people home tonight watching TV. It's not the Republicans who are determined to resist you. It really lies on the folks in this room and your ability to organize, your ability to call, your ability to wake up the moral imagination of your fellow Floridians. It's your ability that in the midst of despair to be a seed of hope. It's your ability in the midst of doubt to be a light of faith. It's your ability at a time that we need heroes for you all to be heroic. I stand here feeling good about this because I look at you and I know you're up for the task. This nation, as me and your president were talking, this nation will be watching Florida in 2014. In many ways, they'll be holding their breath because this state will be a harbinger of what's to come. I want to end with just 2 points. I know it's a tough time. I know in cities from Florida to New Jersey, I see it. There are people hurting and struggling. But remember this, that that's what we came through to get to where we are. We are not a people that had the easy street. We got to where we are through struggle. Nelson Mandela used to have it on his prison wall. He used to read that poem, Invictus, in the fell clutch of circumstance. I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but not bowed. He said, in the fell clutch of circumstance. Remember that. And he went on to say, no matter how straight the gate or charged with punishments the scroll, I am a master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I say that for you to understand that there is hope in this room. Heroism is never seen in a moment. It's not. People pat me on the back, and I said to them, heroism is not running into a burning building. It's never defined on the actions of an individual in a moment. It's shown in individuals who get up every single day with humility and determination and do the necessary work of their community. The unglamorous work of educating a child, of volunteering in the community, of registering someone to vote, of making sure someone has something to eat, of fighting to defend a teacher's contract, of standing up for women's rights, of organizing for gay rights. This is the humble work that never stops of a community in struggle. And so what I want to leave you all with tonight is just this understanding. If I could impart to you just a little bit of that spirit, to let you all understand that the work you are doing is sacred work. Sacred work. The efforts you're putting forth is towards a righteous cause. And though the times are going to get difficult, the way is going to be rough, the obstacles are going to seem hard, you were born for this fight. I tell my staff, I said I would rather have my ship sunk at sea than rot in the harbor, because we were not built for shelter and comfort. We were built for struggle and strain. This was the inheritance This was our legacy, and now we must continue. And so I end with this note. I told you about my family. Allow me, please indulge me to let me finish with this note. I told you about my grandfather who told me about Yuma, Arizona, and told me I was just thank you, Lottie. He was a man that PBS just did a special about my background, died without even knowing who his father was. And PBS went back and found, we tested the DNA and found out that he was born to my great-grandmother that we knew, and a white doctor in a town, in a parish in Louisiana. I reconnected with his family. Imagine right now somebody came up to you and said, you're white in this room, and said, you're related to a black man in New Jersey. But when we all got together, we wept. We wept. We were cousins. We wept. Here was this closeness and this connection. Because that's who we are in America. We're one family. As different as we may think, as much as people want to divide us, we're one family. My grandfather used to have these messages for me. He said, son, don't waste a day. Mayor Bloomberg, in many ways, did my grandfather a favor because he sent me this clock that counts down my days. I have 464 days left as being mayor, and the line that Mayor Bloomberg put is that don't count the days, make each day count. That's what Bloomberg gave me. He also gave me great political advice. He also gave me great political advice. He said, Cory, before you become a mayor, become a billionaire. It's a very good political advice. After the speech, large sugary drinks are on me in the lobby. This was my grandfather's spirit. He squeezed the life out of every single day. He said, son, every day you have a choice to make over and over again. You can accept things as they are or take responsibility for changing them. If you walk down a street, if you see a piece of trash, pick it up. You'll send out ripples of hope and love to other people. If you're walking down the street and you see somebody without a smile, give them your smile. You'll send out ripples of love. In my very first election for mayor, I tell you this as I come to a close, I know I've spoken too long, but my very first run for mayor, I was running this tough race against a man in my city, and it was tough. I really recommend this to all you who have lost elections. If you're going to lose an election, do like I did. Have a documentary team there to capture it all. Because they made a documentary, won the Tribeca Film Festival, got nominated for an Academy Award. It lost to that movie, I think it was entitled March of the Damn Penguins. I think that was I'm sorry, there wasn't that bad word in there. I apologize. I'm a vegetarian, but now I make exception for penguin meat. Somebody's like, oh, it's so cute though, Cory. No, they're not. Life is rodents.
Oh, wow, man.
In the midst of this tough election, I get a call on the phone from a family member who tells me to call my grandfather. Now, I had just seen my grandfather. He was battling cancer, and he had battled it back 2 or 3 times. And the last time I saw him, he had said to me as I was leaving, he goes, I love you, I love your children, and I love your grandchildren. And I look at him, and I think, okay, this is a little deliriousness because I'm not married, I've got no children, which therefore means I have no grandchildren. But what do you do with your grandfather? I kissed him, and I left. And now here I was on Prince Street in Newark. And I get a call from a family member that says, call your grandmother right in the middle of the election. Call your grandmother because your grandfather has died. And I didn't do what I was told. I pulled over to the side of the road, and right there on Prince Street, I wept like a little boy. And suddenly I just wanted to grab something that could hold me up. And I remembered my grandfather's words. You see, he said, I love you, and I love your children, and I love your children's children. You see, I look around and I see folks in this room who will get this immediately. You see, my grandfather lived every day like it was a gift from God. You don't read about him in history books, but he was a union organizer. He was a Democratic volunteer. He was a youth worker for UAW. He bragged until the day he died that he flipped 14 districts in Michigan from Republican to Democrat when FDR was running. He stood up for FDR because he said FDR stood up for the dignity of the elderly. He stood up for the work for the able. He even stood up for things like the value of the arts in our culture. And I sat there and I thought to myself that my grandfather lived each day so passionately. He poured so much love into it that generations yet unborn will one day feel his love. I can't tell you the names of those people who put dollar bills in envelopes for my father, but I feel their love. I don't even know the names of the people that fought for a 5-day work week and the end to sweatshops and the minimum wage, but I feel their love. I can't tell you those people who helped my parents get their first jobs, but I feel their love. I can't tell you those folks who fought to get Pell Grants and the GI Bill or stormed beaches of Normandy to stop fascism, but I feel their love. I don't know if they had us in their minds when they fought and they sacrificed and they struggled. But their love is with us today. It's from science called the first rule of thermodynamics, that you can't destroy energy. It's astrophysics. When we look up at the sky tonight and we see stars, they're billions of light years away. The light we see from those stars themselves had died hundreds of millions of years ago, but their light goes on forever. What we choose to do as Americans, as Democrats, who stand up for children, who stand up for gays and lesbians equality, who stand up for women's rights, who stand up for the poor, who stand up for the idea of interdependence. What we do today and tomorrow through our discipline and our organization will be felt for generations to come. It is our love that will make this nation true, that will prove the 5 words our kids say from Florida to New Jersey, from Maine to Texas. Make it true, those 5 words with that profound pledge that we will be a nation with liberty and justice for all. And so now I end with words I've already mentioned by that poet Langston Hughes. I said the last 2 lines from his poem, but let me go back a little further and conclude my remarks. Because you all have sworn this oath. Langston Hughes wrote in the heat of the 60s during a struggle for all of Americans to make this nation more equal. He said, he called to the consciousness of this country, he said, "Oh, let America be America again. The land that never has been yet, but yet must be. The land where everyone is free, the poor man, the Indian, the Negro, me. And who made America? Whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain must make our mighty dream live again. Oh yes, I say it plain. America never was America to me. But I swear this oath, America will be. Ladies and gentlemen, swear that oath yet again. Leave here with your hearts full of love, your spirits full of determination to do every single day whatever is necessary to prove real the hopes and the dreams of this country. And if we can live with that energy, if we can be brilliant with that spirit, if we can illuminate the world with our commitment to the cause of our country, then yes, generations yet unborn will know we have lived. They may not remember our names, but they'll feel our warmth, and they will celebrate a country that truly is the promised land. Thank you very much.